Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 bringing to another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. And May 21st, 2000 marks 23 years ago that The Undertaker made his shocking return at Judgment Day and debuted the biker gimmick. And for today's edition, I am going to be talking about The Undertaker's American Badass run from May 2000 to November 2001. So, The Undertaker making his shocking return at Judgment Day as the American Badass was the first time that The Undertaker had appeared on WWF TV in 9 months, and it was a very different Undertaker to the one we saw last time. The last time that we saw The Undertaker was back in September 99, before the Unforgiven pay per view, when he walked out on Vince McMahon after disobeying the boss's orders to compete in a casket match against Triple H. And The Undertaker simply said, "Maybe I won't be competing around here anymore." And he just simply walked off, never to be seen for 9 months. And the real reason for this was because this was to take The Undertaker off TV and heal up some nagging injuries that he had been piling up by that point of a almost 9-year career, and specifically a groin injury that he sustained a couple months earlier. And during this time, The Undertaker was doing his ministry gimmick and was tagging with The Big Show as the Unholy Alliance. And The Undertaker, as we all know, made his debut in 1990 and was always presented as this dark, mysterious figure who was always shrouded in mystery, very rarely ever spoke, and would usually always have Paul Bearer do the talking for him. But along the way, The Undertaker would make little tweaks and little changes to the dark gimmick, and he would even change his look, his attire, his entrance music. He would start to become more vocal and even deliver promos on his own. But The Undertaker always stayed within the confines of the dark persona. And in 99, The Undertaker was doing his ministry gimmick where he was this evil, cult like satanic leader, where he would come out in long hooded robes with this long devilish goatee, and it was perhaps the most evil and darkest gimmick of all of the Undertaker's dark personas, and it was very over the top. So after the Ministry of Darkness collapsed and the corporate ministry imploded, the Undertaker, as I mentioned, began to team up with The Big Show as the Unholy Alliance, and you could clearly see that The Undertaker was in transition mode. He would ditch the long hooded robes and start to come out more as a normal guy. He would start to wear jeans, shoes, shirts, bandanas, shades, and even have his hair in a ponytail. So you can imagine what a drastic change this was from the cult like satanic leader of the Ministry of Darkness to this normal looking guy. And he would even start to cut more human based promos that were grounded in reality. He was no longer talking about death or graveyards or sacrificing people. He was just like a normal guy. So it was very clear that The Undertaker was slowly phasing out his dark character in favor of a more human-based persona as we was heading towards the new millennium. And as I mentioned already, The Undertaker would walk out on WWF TV and wouldn't be seen for a total of 9 months, which was probably the second longest time that The Undertaker was away from the company and away from being on TV. And then we would start to see creepy vignettes and promos of little girls saying that he's coming, and we would get these little messages saying that his judgment day is coming and he's here. So it was very clear that it was The Undertaker, but what would The Undertaker be returning as? Would he be returning in his traditional dead man gimmick, or would it be something completely different? So during the Rock versus Triple H 60 minutes Iron Man match. DX would come out and interfere. Vince and Shane McMahon would come out and interfere. And then we hear the gong, and then we'd hear the sound of a motorcycle engine. And then who do we see coming out? None other than The Undertaker himself. He would speed to the ring on a motorcycle wearing a long leather trench coat, jeans, shirt, a bandana, shades, his hair in a ponytail. This was a very different Undertaker to the one we saw last time. And the reaction he got from fans was just absolutely insane. They were really pleased to see him back, and The Undertaker was in full ass kicking mode. He took out DX, he took out Shane, Vince, everybody in the ring. The Undertaker was back with a bang. Now, in terms of the gimmick itself, it was a drastic change from what we had seen before. And as a fan growing up, I wasn't very keen on the idea of The Undertaker being a normal guy now. Yes, I know we did see him dressing like a normal person prior to walking out on TV, but he was still very much in that dark gimmick. So to see him now talking like a normal person, dressed like a normal person, it was just very unsettling for me. And for a very long time, it took for me to get used to seeing that every week. And for the longest time, even with friends and people I know, the American Badass gimmick was very polarizing. Some people liked it, some people hated it. I wouldn't necessarily say I hated it, but I wasn't exactly in love with it either. It was just different, and it took me a long time to get used to it. But I still loved The Undertaker. He was still my favorite wrestler, but it just wasn't that great for me. And the first year or two of the American Badass gimmick, it just wasn't that great for me. He looked out of shape, his matches were boring. It was entertaining on the mic, don't get me wrong. Some of it was a bit questionable because it's not something you're used to seeing. The Undertaker talking trash and acting very similar to how Rock, Austin, and Triple H were acting at that time. It was just very, very weird. But I think over the course of time, I learned to appreciate and respect the American Badass gimmick for what it was because I've heard Undertaker say in a number of interviews that he felt the dead man gimmick was getting stale. He needed the handcuffs off. He needed to let loose and just be himself more. And I can fully appreciate what he was trying to do and where he was coming from. And I think looking back now, I think the American Badass gimmick was needed because if he had stayed as the Dead Man, maybe doing the Ministry gimmick, I'm sure he would have still been doing very well. He was still over. He was still very loved. But I think he probably would have got left behind and pretty much relegated to background status. The Attitude Era was very wild, very rude, and very crazy. And, the Dead Man gimmick wouldn't really have a place in that sort of environment. But the American Badass, absolutely. So it definitely worked, and I would say added a few more years to his career. So, 9 years of being the Dead Man, and now he's doing the American Badass gimmick, which lasted for well over 3 years. So it worked, and it definitely helped him out a lot, and it helped freshen his character up. I would definitely say that the American Badass gimmick got better when he turned heel, and I think turning heel worked very well for him, even though it was very hard to hate him. But I think turning heel worked. And during his American Badass run, he had a lot of success. Didn't have a great deal of matches. I mean, I enjoyed the match he had with Triple H at WrestleMania 17. I thought that was very good. He won the tag team titles twice with Kane, which, quite frankly, should have happened when he was in the Dead Man gimmick, but it was still great to see him and Kane hold the tag team titles and have an epic run as the Brothers of Destruction. He feuded with Stone Cold and Triple H as the two-man power trip. The whole DDP stalking his wife angle, I was not a fan of. I thought that was just stupid. He was a big part of the invasion angle where him and Kane used to beat the crap out of WCW and ECW guys. But at the same time, I felt that The Undertaker was kind of relegated to the background, even though he was already an established big name and a true legend in wrestling. I just felt that something was missing. But once he turned heel, he was back to doing what he does best, and that's kick ass and take names. So, in terms of whether the American Badass was a success or failure, if you asked my younger wrestling fan self whether it was a complete success or failure, I probably would have told you it was a complete failure. But if you ask me now, I would say it was a complete success overall. I think it's definitely freshened up The Undertaker's character and it's definitely added a few more years to his career. And I think it was a perfect fit for the Attitude Era in the 2000s going forward because he showed how versatile of a performer he was. He was very entertaining on the mic and was able to trade words with guys like Triple H, Stone Cold, and The Rock. And he had some funny segments during that time. You know, funny and The Undertaker are not two words you would normally put in the same sentence, but just like he always does, he made everything work. And I would say it was a complete success. And he was still very over. Fans still loved him. Every time he came out on his motorcycle, he would still get huge pops. So he definitely must have been doing something right. And I think the reason why it worked was because the fans always respected what The Undertaker tried to present. He never did the same things twice or repeated himself. He was always constantly reinventing himself for the times and where the company was going in terms of direction. And I think the fans really knew that and stayed loyal to him. So I think everything overall just worked because he got to work a very different kind of style of match in the ring. So he was able to wrestle more, he was able to tell more stories rather than just be this dead guy. So I think everything overall worked out for the best, really. And I think having the American Badass just made the dead man more special when he did bring that back. So I think you needed that biker character for the Attitude Era because of what was going on at the time. So that's going to be it for me. I am going to wrap this up now. What was your thoughts on the Undertaker American Badass run? Did you enjoy it? Do you consider it to be a success or failure? What was your favourite match during the biker era? Did you have any favourite moments during that time? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Wrestling Discussion Series. So until next time, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.